Well, there was a lot of pressure for the Princess of Wales to make that statement. But we'll also talk about the charities. So the charities have had a huge amount of hits on their websites and stuff like that. This does show a kind of power that the royal family do to shed a light on certain issues, doesn't it?
It's a fantastic positive element to come out of what is a very difficult set of news to digest, I suppose. We saw the same with the King when he talked about going in to be treated for a prostate enlargement. It's a condition that a huge number of men struggle with and suffer from, but they're too embarrassed or they're too nervous, they're too scared to go to the doctor, they don't make time to go to the doctor. And there was a dramatic increase. The same happened with Sarah, Duchess of York, when she talked about her breast cancer last year, again when she addressed her skin cancer this year. And I think that really, not only does it allow, I suppose, members of the public to relate to members of the royal family, because the outpouring of sympathy has been dramatic since this news was revealed, but it does in turn inspire and encourage people, because cancer is a disease clearly that does not discriminate. And if the King can be suffering from something, well then it's okay for me to go and see the doctor, because here he is talking about it in a public arena. So in looking for the positives, I suppose that is one of them, and I think the Princess of Wales will have been very aware. There were also subtle messages. Some people will know that daffodils are the symbol of the Macmillan Cancer Trust. She was sitting on a bench in front of daffodils when she delivered that message as well. So there's sort of all sorts of symbolism that was in that message.
And she's Princess of Wales as well, so the daffodils, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Victoria rightly says, if the royal family can talk about it and do something about it, then that's a very clear message to the great British public and people throughout the world. Don't hide it. If you feel there's a problem, go and deal with it. Because by not dealing with it, you're increasing the likelihood that you are going to get something that is not curable. And by the King doing that, first of all, going in for enlarged prostate, and then Buckingham Palace announcing that he has a cancer, was exactly the right thing to do. It sends out all the right messages to the population as a whole throughout the world. And likewise with the Princess of Wales, getting her priorities right, as I mentioned a moment ago, talking to the family first, talking to the children, and then telling everybody what is wrong and what sort of treatment she's getting, and that she is getting stronger and she hopes to be back soon.
You touched on it earlier about the late Queen's speech after the death of Diana, but what is the process? How does it come about that this, from your experience, how do we reach the stage where the Princess of Wales is delivering this video? There must be a lot of meetings. Does the royal member of the family decide themselves? We know that Kate, as you pointed out, wrote this herself. What happens in previous times where you've worked in it? How does this normally work?
Well, in previous times, I mean, we use the example, and I use the example of the Queen's tribute to Diana on the eve of the funeral. She was up at Balmoral. She was being castigated by every newspaper under the sun in the UK for remaining there and not being in London. What she would have done in London with tens of thousands of people mourning is, who knows? But she was up there at Balmoral. She was caring for her grandchildren. William, at the time 15, Harry, at the time 12, and they needed her because she's dealt with death in the family and she's able to counsel them and understand what they're going through and help them overcome the trauma of losing their mother. And she decided early on, yes, there was a clamour by newspapers, she's got to say something now, which was on the Monday, the day immediately after the death of Diana. No, she does things by instinct. She's not going to be bullied and wasn't bullied into doing things. The eve of the funeral was exactly the right time to do it because people's minds were focused on the day after the funeral. They had got out of their system the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, and were just there as a means of showing support, not just for Diana, Princess of Wales, who died so tragically on the Sunday, but also for the royal family.
But I think sorry, Matt, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think where Matt's going with this is that William and Kate will have probably decided together that it was a right time to give the message. Because you were saying about timing, and certainly it was the right time in terms of the public were clamouring ahead of Easter when people are expecting her. I think people thought when Kensington Palace said she'll be back after Easter, they meant Easter Monday. When she knew she wasn't going to be able to, she had to come right back out. But it was interesting, Harold Macmillan said many, many years ago about the late Queen that she means to be queen and not a puppet. And I think William has very much taken that same ethos. He is not going to give in to the demands of the public saying we need this on their schedule, because then it sets a precedent of how things things have to be done. So I think really what would have happened is that William and Kate will have decided together, this is what we want to do. Then you go to the team and say, this is what we want to do. How do we facilitate this? And they're there to support. And the reason I bring that up, Matt, is because particularly in the US, so many people have said, oh, I feel a little bit bad about what I said. I'm embarrassed and I feel cruel that I got in on the memes and I was joking with everyone else. But the Palace comms dropped the PR. It was almost like the Palace made me do it and that's why I behaved badly. And so I think really this is a lovely opportunity actually to say that it's not the Palace comms that are pulling all the strings and determining what William and Catherine do. It's William and his wife leading the charge in terms of what they feel ready to do. They're the principals.
And we forget sometimes, sorry.
They decided they wanted to do it. They had fixed on a date when to do it, which was after the children had broken up from school and Mum had explained to them what was wrong. They felt that was the right time. They told their comms team, this is what we want to do, facilitate it.
But do we forget sometimes that this is essentially a family? We call it a firm. Do you know what I mean?
You're right. People do forget that it's a family. Yes, King George VI coined the phrase "the firm," and I suppose, you look at it overall, it is the firm because it is the firm of monarchy PLC. But it is a family, and it's a family that suffers the same traumas and the same misunderstandings as anybody else. I mean, thousands of people are diagnosed with cancer. As Victoria said a while ago, there are no distinctions between whether it's a royal family, a big businessman, or you and I. We're all susceptible to it.
You mentioned about the US, obviously you work a lot in the States. How's this gone down stateside? I mean, obviously the PR disaster with the Mother's Day photo has played badly both sides of the Atlantic, but how has it gone down with, I think there's people like Stephen Colbert and there's other celebrities and members of the public that have been quite insulting to the Princess of Wales. Has there been a changing attitude since this video? I
think there's been an element of shame. Matt, I have to say, actually, I've been appalled at how the coverage unfolded. It's a very big year in the US politically, and there are a huge number of problems domestically. Migrant crisis at the border. Of course, now we're ramping up to the election, and with that comes a lot of animosity and a lot of headbutting. And I think the royal family sometimes serves as a little bit of a distraction, and it can be viewed on occasion as a bit of a soap opera. And I think people just forgot their humanity in the process, and it became almost a game of topping. And I think it's presented quite an interesting fork in the road for mainstream media, because it's one thing for us to say this is what's happening on social media, but what is it when social media is informing the news? And so this hashtag, where is Kate Middleton, falling down the rabbit hole, the celebrities really started to get in on that, and Blake Lively actually did issue an apology. It was probably the most sincere apology of all of them, but there were mainstream media personalities who people look to for truth and authenticity and accuracy, using words like missing and disappeared. And I thought that was quite insidious, because that's giving legitimacy to those conspiracy theories and validating them in a way, which then enabled other personalities to really get in on the action. So where before it might have been kind of your D-list celebrities, we're talking about the morning show hosts, trickling then into the news magazine shows that are on in the afternoon, then going into the late night comics. I think overall they recognise that they behaved appallingly. There have been some apologies, some are a bit more sincere than others. Some have qualified it with, well, I'm sorry about this, but a cancer diagnosis never should get a but in my book. But I hope that it gives them pause moving forwards, because going back to your point, I think particularly in the US, where they're often just seeing photographs, the royals are seen as sort of two-dimensional figures that are devoid of human emotion, devoid of feelings, considered to be tremendously privileged. Why should we feel sorry for them? And I don't think the royals ever ask for anybody's pity. They're sharing their stories in a very brave fashion. But I think there's quite a few people who could still stand to apologise.